We live in a world our ancestors would barely recognize. Around the globe, the impact of human ingenuity is now everywhere. We've pushed back the limits of our planet at speeds, depths, and heights that would have left our forebears breathless. Driving all these achievements is humankind's extraordinary gift for invention. Through genius and inspiration, we've created exceptional solutions to complex problems. From the everyday to the spectacular, some good and some not so good. This series celebrates the million ways our great inventions have transformed our world.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
A herd of goats in Africa? The famous Boston Tea Party of 1773. And a fruit known as a cherry that changed the course of history. What connects all of these? And how has it transformed societies around the world?
So it actually smooths the wheels of how we function day to day.
After oil, it's the planet's second most important sought-after commodity. It's hard to imagine a life without it.
It's sort of the lubricant that makes the Western world work, I think.
But can supply keep up with demand in the future? Between us, we consume over 2 billion cups every day of this great invention. Coffee. So much more than just a drink. Europeans alone consume over 2.5 million tons of coffee a year. That's the equivalent weight of 25,000 blue whales. Globally, the coffee industry is worth over $100 billion annually. Cafe cultures continue to boom. From Italy to the UK, from America to Australia. It seems we can't miss our daily caffeine fix.
I drink coffee every day, Monday to Friday.
I drink coffee every morning, obviously need a bit of a kick to start the day.
I love coffee.
I do drink coffee. I drink maybe 3 to 4 cups a day.
Our everyday lives have been transformed by coffee, and even the history of the world as we know it has been formed by this extraordinary beverage. As with most foods that have been around for centuries, coffee's beginnings are shrouded in mystery and legend. How did we discover that an innocent little berry could produce such a delicious drink? Some historians believe coffee was unearthed by a goat herd named Kaldi in Ethiopia. He found his goats frolicking and full of energy after eating the red fruit of the coffee shrub. Kaldi tried the fruit for himself and had a similar reaction. After witnessing the goats and Kaldi's strange behavior, a monk took some of the fruit back to his friends. They too spent the night awake and alert. However, it's not until the middle of the 15th century that we have the earliest credible evidence of coffee drinking. It appears in the accounts of Ahmed al-Jafar in Yemen. The drink was brewed in a similar way to this reconstruction. Once made, it was consumed during mystical ceremonies and used to stay awake for religious rituals. By the 16th century, coffee had reached the rest of the Middle East, Persia, Turkey, and Northern Africa. It then spread to Italy. The thriving trade between Venice and North Africa, Egypt, and the Middle East brought many goods, including coffee, to the port of Venice. Some people reacted to this new beverage with suspicion and fear, calling it the bitter invention of Satan. The local clergy condemned coffee when it came to Venice in 1615. The controversy was so great that Pope Clement VIII was asked to intervene. He decided to taste the beverage for himself before making a decision, and found the drink so satisfying that he completely changed his mind and gave coffee the thumbs up. From Venice, it spread to the rest of Europe, where coffee houses were quickly becoming centers of social activity in all the major cities. In Turkey, the coffee revolution took a dark turn. In 1663, the Ottoman Empire was rocked by a new crime. People would be decapitated if found to be engaging in this illicit activity. The Ottoman Sultan Murad IV cracked down on a practice he believed was provoking social decay in the capital: coffee consumption in public. The Sultan believed coffee shops would encourage dangerous thoughts and speech. But this didn't deter the people, and coffee culture survived in the background. Coffee was having an equal effect in another corner of the world, in England. It became so popular it replaced the common breakfast beverages of the time, beer and wine. Those who drank coffee instead of alcohol began the day alert and energized, and not surprisingly, the quality of their work was greatly improved. The 17th century saw the arrival of penny universities. So called because for the price of an English penny, you could purchase a cup of coffee, gain entry to the coffee house, and engage in stimulating conversation. By the mid-17th century, there were over 300 coffee houses in London, many of which attracted like-minded patrons, including merchants, brokers, and artists.
So the coffee house is an institution in the 17th and 18th century. Coffee houses were like clubs, but they were clubs in which you had to pay very little to get into. So you paid your penny, you got a cup of coffee, and that gave you access to the newspapers, it gave you access to comfortable facilities to sit in, and it provided you with a space in which you could discuss the world.
Coffee houses became the new hangout spots, where men met up to socialize and debate.
If you think about the advent of coffee houses and people coming together to share a cup of coffee, it can become a creative space. Ideas are flowing, people are feeling more creative, they're feeling more motivated.
These groundbreaking get-togethers allowed both the rich and poor to learn from one another without prejudice, enabling everyone to speak freely.
Even to this day, you still see the coffee house is used as a hub. They're coming together for coffee, but what you're also picking up on is great conversation.
Today, the world can't seem to get enough of the stuff. But where and how do we source our coffee and find enough to feed this global thirst of epic proportions? There are two primary types of bean, Arabica and Robusta. With Arabica widely considered to have the finer flavor, it accounts for about 3/4 of coffee cultivated worldwide. Coffee grows best in subtropical and equatorial conditions with plenty of rain. It's produced in around 80 countries in South and Central America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. The process begins with planting. A coffee bean is actually a seed. If it isn't picked and processed, it grows into a woody bush. Once the seeds have germinated and grown into healthy shoots, they're planted out in neat rows. This often takes place during the wet season. so that the soil remains moist while the roots become firmly established. It will take 3 or 4 years before the plants are mature enough. Then they'll be ready for harvesting. This Minia community in Peru harvests by hand, often with the whole family joining in. One of the customers of these farmers' hard work is a specialist roaster in the UK. They are experts in all things coffee, and they're full of surprises.
Believe it or not, coffee is actually a fruit. It grows on a bush. It flowers in different stages. So you'll get red and yellow and green cherries. I mean, the reason why we call it a cherry is because it's very similar in size, but inside that cherry, you only get 2 coffee beans.
To satisfy the enormous and growing global market, we need a lot of coffee plants, and more importantly, the cherries they produce, to give us the vast quantities of beans we consume. These go on to be processed in various stages.
There are 3 main ways. Washed, which is a process whereby they mill the cherry flesh from the beans. The beans are then washed within fresh water, and that gives you a very clean taste. You then have the naturally processed coffees, which are the cherries left on the beans, and it's popped into the sun, and that cherry ferments down and hardens. But it imparts a lot of flavor, so you get a very fruity cup. And then you have the final process, which is the pulp natural process. So they mill the cherries, and so the beans pop out, but then they don't wash the sugars off the beans.
The sugars are important for flavor before the next key stage of production: roasting.
We roast coffee because, as green, we don't think it doesn't taste that great. Roasted coffee, you change the cellular structure, you change the chemical structure. That allows you to extract, using water, all the beautiful flavors and oils that you want within your cup.
Clearly, preserving flavor is key to producing a tasty final product. The coffee roaster is a surprisingly simple piece of machinery.
The easiest way to describe it is it's sort of like a washing machine over a barbecue. Inside, you have a drum. It revolves, it's got little fins on it, and that sort of toss the beans around to provide the sort of most even application of heat. Underneath the drum, along the bottom, is the gas burners, so that provides sort of 2 phases of heat. We load the beans in the top, open the little chute. The beans, when they're in the roaster, will congregate most in this area.
Roasting can take as much time as the manufacturer would like. Different roasting times produce different coffee flavors. One of the many secrets of the trade, whoever and wherever the roaster is.
It is a secret recipe, yes, but it depends really on what you're roasting on, and every roaster is different.
When a roast is completed, we then dump it out into the cooling tray. So the plan is to sort of stop that roasting process as quickly as possible. So there's a big fan underneath here, and it sort of spins them around. Then as soon as they hit room temperature, we'll do a quick visual inspection for beans that have roasted unevenly. Drop them into a bin. And then we wait 24 hours before packing.
For coffee consumers, drinking a brew has become a daily ritual.
We have coffee shops everywhere, so that's certainly something that we socially understand. Coffee equals a social space where I get a great cup of Java.
Coffee shops remain as much a meeting place today as they were in the 17th century. What is it about coffee that encourages us to chat and exchange views? Turns out, it's not actually the coffee that helps the brainstorming process, but a chemical it contains: caffeine.
Caffeine acts as a central nervous system stimulant. So when it enters the body, one of the major effects it has is that it makes us more alert, and it obviously makes us less tired.
Coffee has an effect physiologically, we know that, because it mimics another molecule in the body. And when caffeine attaches to this particular molecule, it blocks off its processing. So rather than feeling relaxed and sleepy, you feel the opposite. You feel alert and you feel lively and you feel motivated, because another effect is dopamine in the body. It comes to life and becomes very effective. Now, what does dopamine do? It makes you feel good, it makes you feel alert, and you can concentrate better. So suddenly you've gone from somebody who might have been feeling a little bit relaxed and a little bit sleepy to alert and ready to go.
We find that drinking coffee helps us kickstart our day, or gives us a boost at any other time. But how does it perk us up? And what exactly is it doing to our bodies?
I would like to think that I drink coffee in a truly enlightened way, engaged in high thought and deep discussion. I actually think I drink it because otherwise I'd fall asleep.
Caffeine is a naturally occurring stimulant found in certain foods and drinks, particularly in coffee. And the way it works is it gets into our bloodstream and it binds to the adenosine receptors in our brains.
When this reaction takes place, neural activity slows down, making you feel sleepy. Caffeine mimics this activity, but without you feeling tired.
Now, adenosine receptors are usually to receive adenosine, which is a chemical that tells you when it's time to go to sleep. It calms your brain down and makes you sleepy. And so caffeine mimics that and gets in the way and stops the adenosine from binding like it normally would. So it gives you this sort of stimulated feeling. And then it also, because we're now sort of being more stimulated, it gets our adrenaline going. And so it gives us this sort of buzz.
Many studies have been conducted into the effects of coffee, and recently, scientists have shown it can have psychological effects, which can alter our mood.
I think, yeah, coffee can change our mood because the caffeine can make you feel more alert, more concentrated, more motivated. And if you're in that frame of mind, you feel you can do. So if you're somebody who's just feeling a little bit low and I need a coffee pick-me-up, a lot of people ascribe coffee to helping them get up and go. It can be a motivator.
If you don't want to drink coffee, but you do want motivation, there is an alternative on the market that will give you a similar kick. Energy drinks are becoming the go-to thirst quencher, with the global energy drink market anticipated to reach $86 billion by 2026. Although they might seem like a new fad, these drinks have been widely available since the 1980s. The concept began life as a Thai energy drink called Krating Daeng. It was used by factory workers and truckers to get through long shifts. Austrian entrepreneur Dietrich Mateschitz discovered that Krating Daeng cured him of his jet lag on a business trip to Thailand. He liked it so much, he eventually tracked down its creator, Chalio Yuvidya, and the two went into business together. Mateschitz rebranded it and brought it to European markets in 1987. A completely new product category was born: the energy drink. These contain more sugar than the standard cup of coffee, appealing to the younger market who perhaps don't enjoy the taste of ordinary coffee. But whichever way you choose to consume your caffeine, it will have the same effect: Either will give you a boost throughout the day. Scientists have suggested that the early coffee houses were the original version of the internet. Caffeine-fueled conversations inspired new ideas, scientific discoveries, and even momentous historical events, like the Boston Tea Party. This famous protest was planned in a coffee house that survives to this day in Boston, Massachusetts, the Green Dragon Tavern. On December 16, 1773, the Boston Tea Party took place, involving 3 British ships. Every year, this important moment in history is celebrated, with people dressing up and reenacting what happened. The story began when ships containing tea were imported into Britain by the East India Company. Unfortunately, the company was facing bankruptcy and had asked the British government for permission to export tea directly to America in order to get rid of their surplus stock. This was approved, and in 1773, the Tea Act was passed. But the British government had underestimated the strength of the American resistance to being taxed by them.
For we will not pay that tax.
Angry American colonists disguised as Mohawk Indians dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor through frustration at the British for imposing taxation without representation. This event was the first major act of North American defiance to British rule. 60 people took part in the protest that became known, ironically, as the Boston Tea Party, dumping tea worth $1 million in today's money. It was a significant event in the lead-up to the American Revolution. After the Tea Party, drinking tea became unpatriotic to the Americans. French and Dutch coffee merchants saw an opportunity and flooded the American market with cheap coffee beans, encouraging Americans to turn to coffee. Many historians believe this was the start of the USA's obsession with the drink. But it was catching on back in tea-obsessed Britain, too. As the Industrial Revolution took hold in the 18th and 19th centuries, the workforce was switching to coffee.
What it does is give you an alternative to beer, so you can drink water safely. Before water's purified, you need to boil it, or you need to process it in some way. And brewing, whether coffee or beer, is one way of doing that. The other thing, of course, is that coffee acts as a stimulant, and so the provision of caffeine, whether in coffee or in tea, in the 19th century is something that enables people to work longer and harder than they might have done otherwise.
With the growing number of factories, more people started working on a set schedule. They would wake up, have breakfast, and then head to their factory jobs. These workers began to live almost exclusively on coffee and bread, because coffee was stimulating and warm, providing an illusion of nutrition they could afford. Cheap coffee on tap is available in a place like this, the cultural icon known as the American Diner, celebrated here in 1951. Often open 24 hours a day, the diner is a place to socialize, eat a cheap meal if you're working a late shift, or any time of day, and they serve coffee all day long. It's a development from America's first mobile coffee shop. When food and coffee began to be sold from a repurposed wagon in the 1870s. Soon, the idea had spread and evolved into the permanent stylized diners found all over the United States. But the diner isn't the only icon of American culture associated with coffee. The New York Stock Exchange and the Bank of New York both began life in the coffee houses of the world-famous financial district, Wall Street. Back in the day, the coffee would have been black and extremely rough by our standards. But the chemistry was the same. So how do you make the perfect cup of coffee? Firstly, the temperature of the water has to be just right, so it absorbs the coffee correctly. Any cooler, and the water absorbs the coffee poorly. Any hotter, and the water burns the grains, making the coffee taste bitter. Brewing time is also vital. There are 3 key stages. Acidic, fruity-flavored compounds are the first to be extracted, followed by more earthy, caramel-like compounds, and finally, the bitter-tasting ones. Short brew times lead to only the first group of compounds being extracted, whereas overbrewing can lead to an excess of the bitter flavors. For the best coffee, we have to aim between these 2 extremes. Today, the coffee industry is valued at $20 billion. And, on average, 500 billion cups are consumed on Earth every year. We just can't get enough of the stuff.
I discovered I loved coffee when I went to Italy, and I had a particular brand of coffee, and I had to come home and find out what it was and where I could get it. Of course, you could get it in the local supermarket, and I had it every single morning for like 5 straight years.
I never used to be much of a coffee drinker until the last couple of years. My other half drinks it a lot, so I started sampling it, and I have to say it does make you feel alert, and I'm able to get into my work more quickly and more creatively as well.
But while some people are just catching on to coffee, this continuing growth is creating issues. Every coffee drinker seems to have their own routine of when, where, and how.
Going back, I used to drink it a lot. I used to drink a lot of it when I had kids that were younger.
In the afternoon, I do have a cup in the afternoon at work. After lunch, wake me up.
But all this coffee consumption is leading to a big environmental problem. At home or work, you might have a wide variety of mugs or cups to choose from. However, on the move, you're more likely to grab a takeaway coffee in a so-called paper cup. Worldwide, 16 billion are used annually, with many consumers presuming they're recyclable. But they are not. Due to the complicated way in which the cups are produced, fewer than 1% are recycled. Though they are made largely of paper, disposable coffee cups are lined with plastic polyethylene, which is tightly bonded to the paper, making the cups waterproof and able to contain liquid. The difficulty of recycling coffee cups is increased by the fact that they are contaminated with drink. It means cups can't be recycled at conventional recycling plants and must instead be taken to special facilities. Unrecycled plastic takes hundreds of years to break down, meaning lots of it ends up polluting the natural environment. Gradual breakdown of plastics results in tiny microplastics that can be ingested by animals and us, causing harm. Understanding the true nature of so-called disposable coffee cups and awareness of protecting the environment are growing. Slowly, people are remembering to take reusable mugs to coffee shops. So next time you grab a coffee, consider taking your own reusable cup. But not everyone has time to grab a coffee on the go or make a fresh cafetiere in the mornings. One of the solutions brings its own environmental issues. The coffee market is constantly growing and diversifying, trying to cater to individual needs. People have less time than ever. So the industry has developed a simple solution to your caffeine fix, which has revolutionized coffee drinking. the coffee capsule. An estimated 56 billion are used worldwide every year. These shiny, jewel-like pods are easy to prepare. With only one click, 1 cup of coffee is produced. These capsules might look contemporary, but the technology behind this recent invention was actually created decades ago. A Swiss aerodynamics engineer called Eric Favre is the father of capsule coffee. In 1975, he was a Nestlé employee when he decided to seek out the best coffee in the world. He found what he was looking for in Rome. He learned the reason why Italians were lining up to sample a particular cafe's brew. The barista was aerating the coffee by pulling the lever not just once, but at several short intervals, which brings out all the flavors and aromas. Inspired, he set about designing a machine that introduced a maximum amount of air into the water before it's forced through the capsule. Back in Switzerland, the inventor put his plans into action and developed a prototype espresso machine, a groundbreaking contraption. He then invented a sealed capsule, similar to the ones today where air is trapped before water is pushed through, filling the cup with frothy espresso. But these pretty pods have a major flaw: their lack of recyclability. Every minute of the day, up to 29,000 capsules are dumped in landfill sites worldwide. The bulk of capsules on the market are plastic with a silicone lining, so the capsules need a bespoke recycling process. Companies claim their products are recyclable. It's true, but the problem lies with the process itself. Recycling is complicated. The capsules can't just be put in the normal trash. They have to be sent directly back to the company that made them. Because of this, many coffee drinkers don't bother following the procedure or simply haven't got the time. Research is being done into compostable materials so the capsules can go to landfill and decompose over time. It's not all bad news. The coffee machines used to process the pods are more environmentally friendly than you might think. They only flash heat the small amount of water needed for 1 cup. Unlike the kettle, which uses much more energy and water. Whilst we've managed to crack convenience coffee, research into the physical effects of coffee on our bodies has brought conflicting results.
The health benefits associated with coffee have been heavily scrutinized. There is some evidence to suggest that it's good for us, but there's also a lot of evidence to suggest that it may be harmful to us. Some of the health benefits associated with coffee are that it can act as a protectant to our liver to prevent us from developing liver cirrhosis, as well as also some types of liver cancer. Furthermore, coffee has also been associated with reducing the risk of the onset of dementia. Some of the negative points is that it may increase our risk of heart disease. Drinking coffee in moderation is fine.
Moderation, according to America's Food and Drug Administration, is measured as a maximum of 4 cups a day. Any more, and you could be putting your health at risk. But for some, drinking coffee just isn't a good idea.
Some people should actively try and avoid drinking coffee, namely individuals who are pregnant, because we do know that there are some harmful effects associated with caffeine and the developing fetus in the mother. Other individuals who should also refrain from drinking too much coffee, or indeed too much caffeine, include those who might have trouble sleeping. There is also some evidence to suggest that perhaps coffee might be problematic for those individuals which have chronic heart disease or individuals who have high blood pressure as well.
Scientists researching the physical effects of caffeine on the body came across an extraordinary and extreme outcome in spiders. In 1995, scientists at NASA used house spiders to explore the effects of different drugs, one of which was caffeine. The spiders spun bizarre webs, and scientists found that the more toxic the chemical, the more deformed the web looked compared to a normal web. The webs of spiders given caffeine were characterized by disorganized cells and a lack of the normal hub and spoke pattern, proving caffeine really does have an effect. Meanwhile, an American pet owner thinks coffee is the secret to long life in cats. Jake Perry has owned many felines over his lifetime, all living to at least 30 years old. One kitty in particular, called Cream Puff, topped the record for the oldest cat in the world, living to be 38. Jake shared his secret for feline longevity: a breakfast of eggs, bacon, and coffee with cream. Cream Puff's love of dairy in his coffee is widely shared. From Latin America's café con leche to South India's filter coffee, many recipes call for adding dairy. Nowadays, this drink comes in all shapes and sizes, from latte to cappuccino, mocha to Americano, and flat white to espresso. There is a whole coffee dictionary that society has learnt. Coffee has come a long way from traditional black. Dairy and coffee are a recent partnership. They met in Europe when the first coffee house in Austria opened in Vienna in 1683, after the Battle of Vienna. A Polish military officer by the name of Jerzy Franciszek Kulczyk obtained some coffee beans after defeating the Turks. He then opened his own coffee house, with a difference. Here the coffee was served white. They added milk and sugar. It's known as a melange, and became a typical Viennese coffee. It helped milky coffee catch on. Now, baristas take great delight in using the creamy tops to express their creativity. It's all in the pouring, apparently. Coffee has proved to be an extraordinarily versatile product, not just as a drink, but because of other hidden benefits. These days, it turns up in some surprising places, like the garden.
Coffee is actually really good to be used as a fertilizer, actually. So, plants need a lot of key minerals and stuff to thrive, and actually coffee can provide a few of those, nitrogen, potassium, chromium, for instance, and plenty more. And the coffee could even attract worms, which are obviously good at promoting the growth of the plants.
The benefits of coffee have also been noticed by the beauty industry. Coffee is deeply aromatic, and this makes it appealing for shower and bath products. Face and body masks are now infused with caffeine to invigorate the skin. It is being used as a natural hair dye, which is softer to the hair, and even caffeine shampoo is on the rise. It's been found to boost circulation to the roots and promote healthy hair growth. How is this coffee obsession affecting us as a society? The boiling kettle, the aroma from the mug, the first bitter mouthful of the morning. But do people only drink coffee to get their daily hit of caffeine?
I think with coffee, for a lot of people, coffee is part of their daily routine. They don't even think about the fact that they're going to go and have a cup of coffee. They just know they're going to go and have a cup of coffee. So it's very much embedded in their personal daily routine.
People across the globe have different attitudes and even words to describe coffee. From Java to battery acid and brew to a cup of joe. Some need more explanation than others. The nickname Java is a mystery. It's believed to have been first used by the Dutch to refer to single-origin coffee from the island of Java. As the coffee trade grew, the name Java was adopted by more and more people throughout the world. Cup of Joe is also shrouded in mystery, with many different theories about its origins. One possibility is coffee was once considered a common man drink, so it was given the name Joe, a common man name. Whatever you call it, there's also an international scale of popularity, and Finland comes out on top. The average Finn drinks 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day. Coffee consumption among Finland's Scandinavian neighbors is almost as high. But you can have too much of a good thing.
Some people can develop an addiction to coffee in that they feel they can't go through the day without having a lot of caffeine in their system. The thing is, the side effects of coffee are, feeling jittery and feeling irritable and feeling, nervy a lot of the time. So, you've had too much caffeine when you get into that state. So for some people, they can develop a dependence on caffeine to get them through the day.
But unlike other drugs associated with addictions, caffeine has a relatively low impact. The unpleasant effects can make you cut down on your intake, but it doesn't interfere with your job or your family life in the same way as a more serious drug would.
Some people argue that it should be treated in the same way, but a lot of other people argue that it's nowhere near as bad, and it's more of a dependence on the caffeine, but it's on a lower level.
However, with addiction comes withdrawal, with potentially unpleasant side effects.
Caffeine withdrawal does exist, particularly in individuals who regularly drink coffee or caffeine and subsequently suddenly stop it. Some of the symptoms associated with caffeine withdrawal include irritability, fatigue, low mood, a lack of energy.
So they are symptoms of withdrawal, which can last from 12 to 24 hours for some people, and for other people, a little bit longer. But unlike withdrawing from other drugs, it's pretty short-lived, and you can choose to cut down and not have it if you want to.
The great advantage of coffee is to make us feel alert. However, this is arguably its biggest downfall. Worldwide studies suggest that up to 50% of the world's population suffer from insomnia, and coffee could be one of the main culprits. If it is consumed too late in the day, this stimulant can make it hard to fall asleep. One study found that consuming caffeine 6 hours before bedtime reduced total sleep by 1 hour.
I'm not addicted to caffeine. I think I'm quite aware of that I can be affected quite a bit by it, and so that means that I don't drink too much because it does affect my sleep quite a bit.
So caffeine blocks certain receptors in the brain for certain chemicals that induce sleep, and when they're blocked, you can't sleep so much. So if you have a double espresso after dinner, you find it's funny, I can't do it. Human beings should be getting 7 to 8 hours sleep a night. At the moment, we're not. The less you sleep, the shorter your life. Pretty much everything is affected by how well you sleep or not. So the coffee epidemic is having a massively deleterious contributing effect to the sleep epidemic.
However, our love for coffee shows no sign of slowing down. We're drinking more than ever. So what's next for this growing market?
Coffee, it's just everywhere. You can't escape it. And it seems to be just the socially acceptable thing to do. You know, rather than let's go and have a meeting, it's like, shall we grab a coffee? You know, and you just see so many people around with the, you know, trademarked coffee cup style things handing around. It's just everywhere. It's sort of just pervaded culture.
The explosion of coffee is not really about the coffee. I think it's about a way for human beings to convene with each other. Coffee shops, cafes, having a cup of coffee. It's one of the ways, in the same way that pubs do, you know, they bring people together. So I think the coffee trend is actually a facilitator for a much bigger trend, which is about humans requiring social interaction.
But there is one very dark cloud approaching, which consumers may be unaware of. The future of coffee is uncertain. Global warming is deciding its fate for us. A study in 2019 found that 60% of coffee plants are now at risk of extinction, including the variety which produces most of the world's beans. Researchers found that 75 of the planet's 124 wild coffee species are under threat from the loss of forests, climate change, and the worsening problem of fungal disease and pests. A world without coffee is hard to imagine. It impacts everyone and everything, and one of the important effects would be felt economically. Coffee has become a vital cash crop for many developing countries. It's the backbone of the Ethiopian economy, providing more than 30% of the country's export earnings. If the plant that once helped cultivate imperial trade routes becomes extinct, it could once again change the shape of the world economy, but not for the better. But all is not lost. In 2012, coffee roasting and importing companies from around the world banded together to form World Coffee Research, a global collaborative working on developing new, climate-smart coffee varieties and farming practices. It's a ray of hope in an uncertain world for the millions who rely on coffee.
I think for a lot of people, coffee is a great invention because for many, it's become a daily pick-me-up. This is the thing that's going to get my day kick-started, and so many people kind of utilize it in that way.
Love it or loathe it, this one small bean has made an unbelievable impact. Billions of cups are drunk every day as coffee shops pop up more and more in shopping districts the world over. South Korea is one of the biggest boom areas, with 88,000 coffee shops in 2018, which means 1 for every 600 citizens. Coffee has transformed history, shaped our culture, and even fertilized our gardens. From an accidental discovery by a herd of goats to becoming the world's favorite beverage, coffee truly is a great invention.